Um, Welcome to Find Your Way Beyond uh, Heartbreak, Grief, and sorry. I have also been sick, so you may need to cut
Oh,
that first little bit. Um, Welcome to the Find Your Way podcast. Our guest today is Connie Gold. This is her third time being with us, and she experienced a um, injury that has led to a number of surgeries, pain that caused what's called intangible loss. And I'm sorry. Okay, can we start over? Because I'm
I don't know
just
if she's here anymore.
god boggling. Okay, well, she can cut that part. Okay, I've been also battling wildfire air, so I've been a
Oh,
little
yeah.
challenged myself. Um, Okay, I'm going to start over. And so Karen can just cut the first piece. Hello, welcome to this episode of the Find Your Way Beyond Grief, Heartbreak, and Loss podcast. We are featuring Christy's sister, Connie Gold, who has experienced ongoing debilitating chronic pain after an accident a number of years ago. Across the years, Connie's been through a number of surgeries to relieve pain and improve energy, mobility, and quality of life. So, this is her third time with us. And so, this has been an ongoing story for those in our audience who have experienced something that's not a one and done. Uh, it wasn't something happened and there was the surgery and it was just fixed. This has been an ongoing journey for Connie. And I think that any of our audience who have experienced illness that goes over time, an accident that affects the quality of life through the life. And so her journey is really important for anyone who is going through any of these experiences. It's her third time with us. So please feel free to go back, Connie Gold, and watch the other episodes from before. And so, Connie, catch us up. What has been happening since your last surgery?
Okay. Well, I think I spoke with you several months after my second hip surgery. And
Hmm.
I was still in the process of going through a lot of therapy and, physical healing at that point. So fast forward now 2 years later, and I'm doing great physically, mentally. I'm in a really good place. Unfortunately, the second surgery was very successful. And I have been able to regain most of the mobility that I had in the past. Of course, I'm older than I was when this all started 5 years ago. So I've learned that I do have to have certain limitations on the activity that I do, but I'm okay with that. I've, learned what I can and can't do or shouldn't do, and try to challenge myself in areas that I think I'm able to as time goes on. But along the way, I've met a lot of great people. I do water therapy now, and I've continued to do that. And I've made a whole new circle of friends that have come from that. And I have a different job than I had when this initially started. I'm still in the dental field, but I'm not a hygienist any longer. I've given that position up. And I work with the front desk staff in a dental office. And so I've learned a whole new aspect of my field that's been interesting and keeping me learning new things all the time. And so it's good. I've been able to maintain, going and doing things with my grandkids now, things that I wouldn't have been able to do 3 years ago for sure. And so mentally, obviously, I'm in a much better place as well. And
On real
You,
quick,
yes.
if you don't mind me asking, just for our listeners who haven't heard your story, it sounds like you've gone from a place of like, it was very difficult and you've come so far. You're in such a good place now. If you don't mind just very quickly going back and explaining a little bit about what actually happened and why you had to have that first surgery and kind of what that felt like. Because it's really exciting to hear how far you've come, but people don't know where you came from. So I want to just kind of backtrack a little bit.
Well, it was about 5 years ago. I fell and broke my hip and my elbow and had to have surgery on both of them, which in and of itself was a bad experience to say the least. But at the time, the timing of it, it was during COVID and there weren't hospital environments that were able to see me. We couldn't find a surgeon that would do both an upper and lower extremity in one surgery. And so that part of it was a big challenge too. And so it ended up that the surgeon that did the procedure, we weren't really familiar with at all, had never been recommended to us. We were kind of just at a loss as to who could do the procedure. So, and my son was getting married in 4 weeks. And so I was bound and determined to at least be at the wedding. We had changed the plan so many times due to COVID, changing their expectations. So after the surgery, I went through about 2 years of physical therapy and just wasn't getting better. I started to improve certainly after the first year, but then I was going backwards and I was having a lot of pain with my hip. And it got to the point where after 2 years, I just had gone every direction that I could think of as far as alternative therapies, acupuncture, just every alternative therapy that you can imagine. The physician that I had seen, the orthopedic doctor, kept insisting it was for my back and not for my hip, and just kind of, referred me to a different surgeon or a different doctor to, evaluate my back. And at that point, I had to give up my career of being a dental hygienist, which I had been for 40 years, but I just couldn't tolerate the sitting and leaning over and the unexpected pain that I would get. But it was an extremely excruciating pain when I would put weight on my leg, and it didn't happen all the time. I might be able to walk to the mailbox and back, but then I wouldn't be able to walk, 2 steps without it really being to the point where I would be in bed for a couple of days due to the pain. So eventually, due to my leg being shorter, I was seeing a podiatrist, and he kept encouraging me to seek out the opinion of another doctor that he was highly recommending. And I finally did that. And immediately the surgeon said, we need to get that hardware out of you. There's no need for it any longer, and it doesn't fit properly. So every time I was putting weight on my leg, the hardware and my bone and my femur would torque and twist. And that's why I was having such bad pain. But in the meantime, I had injections in my back. I had nerve ablations, just everything that you could imagine to try to alleviate the pain. But none of it was helping because it wasn't curing the problem at that point, which we didn't know what that was. So I did have surgery. It was a little challenging only because I have pretty advanced osteoporosis, and there was a risk of taking that hardware out that my leg would shatter. So the surgeon had plan A and plan B. If it doesn't, we're just going to take that hardware out and you're going to heal, and everything should be fine. If it shatters, then we have to put more hardware back in, and we'll address that if we have to. And fortunately, everything went well. The hardware came out, and I was just so blessed, incredibly blessed to have gone through that second procedure. And again, long, years worth of rehab, and to get back to where I had the mobility of my leg again, and the endurance that I had previously had pretty well. I have to be very cautious just because of the osteoporosis, and that's a whole other journey right there. But so that's kind of the background of my surgeries and where I am now.
Connie, as I'm listening, what I'm hearing is so there was the roller coaster of the injuries and the surgeries, and also the roller coaster of the hope.
Mm-hmm.
in the course of it. And I think one of the things that's really, really hard is the hope. So my husband had pancreatic cancer, and the hope is that a person with pancreatic cancer will live until they get to a
Hmm.
solution, a cure. And so in the course of your surgeries, there was you know, I'm going to do this in the hope but that's in its own roller coaster.
Right, right.
So could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that that's the emotional piece that people don't talk about that much.
Hmm.
That really wears on both that person and the people around them.
Definitely, it does. And I had gotten to such a state of anxiety and depression because of the pain, never knowing when it was going to occur, that I was afraid to go anywhere by myself. Either Christy or my husband had to be with me. I wasn't leaving the house very much at all. And so I think at that point, I really didn't have much hope at all. Just thought, I don't know how but the thought of having another surgical procedure, I didn't think that was an option at the time. The original
Hmm.
surgeon said that I would have to have that hardware in there. So when I went and saw the second surgeon, and Christy was with me at the time, and he said that they could take that hardware out, it was just mind blowing to me. Like, I didn't even know that was an option. This is something? And my husband initially was very apprehensive. Just he didn't want me to have to go through another surgery, which I didn't want to either. But when he came in and met the surgeon then, and he explained to my husband what was going on, he saw that there was value in this procedure.
Hmm.
So that's when we started having hope, I guess, at that point. And it, they wanted to do the surgery right away. Unfortunately, I couldn't do that. We had to wait a few months just due to my osteoporosis. And during that time frame, again, the anxiety, because we knew there was such a risk. But I think I put myself in just a mind frame of like, I can't think about this. I'm just going to go for the surgery, and whatever happens, then I'll deal with it. I'm not going to let myself mentally go through the what's, ifs, ands, buts, all those things at that point.
That
Yeah.
just hearing you talk about it, all of that emotion from, I'm like, it's going to make me cry. All of that emotion from walking through that with you, those ups and downs, and do you
Hmm.
do this? Do you do that? Trying to decide what to do and what's the best thing for you. And oh, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I think that people don't realize that this is all a form of grief. Like, this is intangible loss. That's what we're dealing with here. We think about tangible loss, and that's just like, the death of somebody, the death of a person or a pet, a divorce, estrangement. But this, where we have physical loss of physical ability, there are all kinds of things: loss of safety, loss of hope, loss of dreams, loss of trust. There are so many other losses that are intangible, and that's what we're talking about here. And oh
Hmm.
my gosh, those feelings, they're just like rushing back hearing you talk about it and
I
how
know.
emotional it was. It was just so emotional. And I, it was, it's hard to even describe it. And a lot of times people don't realize that what they're feeling is grief. Um,
Yes. And
yeah.
I learned, through that process, obviously with you by my side, that's how I learned to deal with, recognizing that this was a loss, not understanding, why I was so depressed and so sad and so hopeless at that point. Um,
Hmm.
and then as Christy started talking to me more and more and bringing up different situations, helping me to realize, oh, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm going through. So, yes, let's address this in a way that's going to be beneficial and help me get through that and hopefully be able to view it from a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think there's a real power in naming something grief, naming naming it, because if you can name it, then you can find solutions for it.
Right.
Whereas until you name it, you're just kind of flying blind.
Mhm.
Now, since you two are sisters, Christy, I want to ask you a question, uh, which I had not planned, but here we go.
Okay.
I know you love this so much. Um, but there is for family members, as Connie's sister, your husband, your children, there is the grief of witness and the grief of walking through this. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because I think that grief is not, it's not a solo event, even though it feels like a solo event, it's a community experience. And yet there's a whole lot of, but I'm the one with, and a whole lot of focus on that and not really recognizing that there is a very profound ripple effect and a helplessness when you're watching and have very little that you can do about it. So, Christy, could you talk to that
Yeah,
grief?
yeah, that was it was a lot. It was I just wanted to protect her all the time. So I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there if she went somewhere. I wanted to make sure that she had Rusty or she had me. A lot of times I didn't know if I should say, "Can I come with you? I want to go with you to the doctor." Luckily, most of the time she asked me to. I was like, okay, how, I don't want to step over a line, but also I had that super protective feeling like I wanted to be there and I wanted to hear what they said. I needed to know, I needed to feel what was going on. I needed to know what was happening. And it was, I felt like we were almost one person during that time. You know, we were together so much. And I loved that part. As a matter of fact, I grieved the loss of that when she was better. Like she got better and I wanted her to be better, of course, but I missed her. I missed our time together that we had, and I still miss it, but I've adjusted and it's better. And I want it this way because, of course, she's doing great and it's wonderful to see her, you know, just thriving again. My sister is like, go, 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 go. And to see her the way she was alarming and emotional and sad and like what's happening. Um, so it was hard to watch. I also wanted to be there all the time. And I also wasn't always sure about where the line was. But and then like I said afterwards, I grieved. I missed being with her. So a lot of emotions, roller coaster of emotions. And that's one of the definitions of grief, you know, the roller coaster of emotions that happens.
Right.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. And the life that you have, with husband, children, your own life and your
Mhm.
intersection with Connie's life, and there's an impact. When an event like this happens in a family, there's an impact on everybody.
Hmm.
Um, and so the cost is not just the cost. It's not just the clear cost. That's kind of the intangible loss piece. It's the ripple effect cost. It's the fear.
And I think one of the things that was so, I mean, I was beyond appreciative and just loved, like Christy said, us being able to spend that time together. And there were times where she did ask, do you want me to go or am I overstepping that line? And my husband, she didn't want to, if my husband wanted to be there, she didn't want to step over that line. And then at the time, my husband had a very demanding, stressful job. And he was so appreciative that she could be there to,
Hmm.
to go to these appointments and to be there with me. And it was a great time together. And it's brought Christy and I even closer than we had been. And so that was a blessing in the whole circle of that time frame of my life. But I know, Christy's the one that would speak the words where my husband and my kids would just kind of dance around the situation, not really want to, oh, she's fine, she's going to be fine, look at, they don't get down into the nitty gritty of the emotion of it because it's hard. It's your mom, it's your wife. You don't want them to be in pain. You don't want to see them suffering. You don't want to see them debilitated, where they have to be pushed around in a wheelchair or use a walker. And many
Hmm.
that's where I was. And it was humiliating many times. I never thought I'd be that person at my age to be, you know, just asking. My husband and I just went to the store the other day, and the last time we bought new towels. It was a big, our annual new towel shopping event. And he said to me, "Remember the last time we were buying that one time we were buying new towels and you were here in your wheelchair and we had them all piled up on top of you." And I was like, "Oh gosh, yeah, I remember that." And it was such a strange time to think back on that, oh, I was uncomfortable. As far as like, you just don't feel good about yourself in those moments. And I'm just so incredibly fortunate and blessed. And God has had his hand on this whole thing. And in seeing that, and helping and understanding other people that are going through emotional, physical losses that I can relate better to at this point. And I hope that I
Hmm.
can be more understanding and more empathetic to what they're going through. And if there's, where I can help them see where there might be a little bit of hope or a glimmer of that, going forward, that they can maybe, that can help them in some way.
I'm curious, and you might not have an answer for this, but because it may be individual for each person. But when you talk about being able to share with somebody a glimmer of hope, can you tell us what glimmers of hope helped you and that you often share with other people?
Hmm. I think a lot of it was I've got five grandchildren and I wanted to be able to do things with them. And I wasn't able to get up and down off the floor, and I wasn't able to go for walks with them for long periods of time. Or, I had to walk holding on to the stroller. I couldn't walk without holding on to something. And as I progressed from my second surgery and became stronger and more able to do those little things that really drove me to even having the surgery, was I want to be able to enjoy my grandkids and I don't want to be the one that can't go to the zoo with them. So as I made steps to be able to do those things, small things with them on a daily basis, or even a trip to the zoo eventually, those are the things that gave me more and more, hope, I think, along the way. Being able to get off of a lot of the pain medications that I had been on. Those were so bad, mentally and physically, the side effects from the medications, and seeing how I could wean down on those and hardly take anything any longer, in such a short period of time. That was amazing to me too. That really gave me hope.
So small
So,
dreams, accessible dreams.
Mhm.
yeah, it sounds like maybe you like really celebrated the small stuff.
I
Um,
think, I might not have had a big party, but in my mind, it was a good thing, right?
yeah.
Yep. Um, I wanted to go back to, your husband and your kids, saying she's fine. She's fine. And I think that I remember when my husband was dying, when we found out he was manic depressive, when we found out he was diabetic. Um, we wanted it to be fine.
Mhm.
We wanted that person to be fine. Um, we wanted to help make them fine somehow. And there's a way in which fine is a really lonely place to be.
Mhm. Yes. And that's where Christy came in to be that person that really knew when I wasn't fine, even when I wouldn't recognize it myself, she did.
Hmm.
And I remember at one point, um, before my son's wedding, and I had to try on the dress that I was wearing for the wedding, and she came over to help.
Mm,
And this was literally just like 3 weeks after the first surgery, after I had fallen. And
wow.
I'm trying on this dress and she's there with me and I'm having to wear tennis shoes with it, athletic shoes. And I start crying and she said to me, I wondered when this was going to happen. I can't believe you've gone this long without crying. And
Mm-hmm.
so she knew, she could recognize when I was to that point where, it was too much for me to keep it under wraps. And my husband is very, bless his heart, he's the best caregiver you could ever imagine. But he's very Pollyanna and it's like, oh, you tell the kid she's gonna be fine. She's, it's fine, it's fine. And I'm sure that's what he wanted to say so it would make me feel like I was gonna be fine. But I
Mm-hmm.
know deep down he had concerns and worries too, but he shows it in a different way or doesn't express it in the way that would be not to alarm me or make me fearful or feel like there wasn't hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, what happened in my situation is as we didn't talk about my husband's skin getting closer and closer to his bones and all of this, um, we separately grieved.
Mm.
And when we bridged it and actually were able to talk about our fears and hopes and dreams and all of that, we were better together,
Right,
you
right,
know, because there was a freedom to be okay in the tears or okay in the anger, okay in the, because I'm fine doesn't always look like a big smile when you're in deep pain.
right. Yes. So
Sometimes, yeah, so sometimes it might look like, okay, I was able to titrate down on a medication,
mhm.
and that didn't look possible
Yeah,
3 months ago.
right, right. I know I just have weaned off of my Lexapro. And so that's a big, again, because the side effects of that for bone density aren't good. So
Hmm.
that was my goal. And honestly, it's been fine, but it's a small win, to be able to feel like you've got more control over that and that you don't feel you need it any longer.
Hmm.
And you went on the Lexapro during this whole thing,
Right.
correct?
After,
So it was,
yeah, probably 2 years after the initial surgery, because again, I was just so depressed and anxious and all those emotions, the fear of the pain was so just would overwhelm me that I started taking Lexapro at that time. And then I was on gabapentin and metformin and tramadol and a
A
lot of
lot,
patients to just mess with you're in a brain fog, you have no appetite, just they give you bad headaches. And so to be able to be off of those medications has just been wonderful.
yeah, to allow you to enjoy the things that make life worth living.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, 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 that's fabulous. So I wanted to talk about the importance of setting sort of small milestones towards the goals. So, kind of what were the goals that you had that were out a ways, and what were the little milestones that allowed you to see that you were making progress as you went through all of this?
Well, going back to work, it took me a few months to go back to work, but that was definitely something that I had wanted to do as soon as possible. And it took me about 2 months or so. But at that point, I was still using a cane, and those things, those physical changes, I think were the milestones. Like, okay, now I can walk without that cane. Now I
Hmm.
feel comfortable. When I first started being able to go out places by myself, I was like, I can't believe this is me. I would call Christy and be like, I can't believe this is me, that I am out here on my own.
and
Um,
I would be like, oh, this is so exciting. And I got the phone and be like, oh, I miss her. But I was super excited. I mean, really, so thrilled. It was so exciting to watch. It really was. It was just thrilling to watch her progression was so exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Um, what would you say has happened to your kind of appreciation for life? Because you had a very active, very dynamic life before all of this happened, and then you were taken out by something you had no control over, and then you got back
Mm-hmm.
much of what you had lost, and with some limitations, but a whole big leap back towards where you were before. So how has that changed your appreciation for these things? Because I do think we take for granted life.
Oh, certainly. Certainly. I think one of the greatest things, like when I get up in the morning and I can just get up and walk, and not be afraid to do it any longer. That is
Mm,
something I, recognize. I appreciate, mentally recognize that on a daily basis. Um, and just let me rethink this question for a second. Um,
hmm
I can just say that I know there are so many times where we're talking about something that I'm upset about and concerned about. And she said, after all I've been through, I don't worry about that stuff anymore. There
well,
have been so
mm,
many times she said that to me.
that is true. That is true. Things that used to really, especially from a physical standpoint of me aging, the things that used to really bother me so much. Um, I mean, they still bother me, but I don't take it as seriously as I used to, I guess. Um, and I just kind of let that stuff go more than I would have before. Um, yeah, and things just like relationships, I think,
hmm
when you think about relationships with certain people in your life that might have a level of stress to them, sometimes you just try to find that you can give them more grace and just let those things go so that the true meaning of the relationship and what it really means to you deep down is more important than the little things that can make it a little prickly sometimes.
Have your relationships deepened, the ones that were close, but have they taken a different level of meaning?
Um, yeah, I think so. In fact, I think some of my friendships have expanded. People that I used to work with, not at the job that I'm currently at, um, where I've been for many years, but I was at another job for just one day a week for quite a few years. Those people have come back into my life. Some of my college friends that I hadn't seen in a while have come back into my life. And so
hmm
I'm really working harder at maintaining those relationships because that is so easy. And it is for everybody. Our lives get busy. Everybody's got, most of my friends don't work any longer, but they travel or they have grandchildren and other things that keep them busy. And but I've actually connected more with other people, and I really try hard to stay in touch with them and to make plans with people that I've reconnected with.
So practically, how do you do that? Because, life goes on. Life is busy, and one of the things that happens for many people who are grieving is that um, they're grieving in the time when you were going through the operations. There are people who probably stayed in your orbit, your family, Christy, but there were also probably people who drifted away and who their lives went on, and so they were just less available over time. So, in terms of keeping these connections going, how do you, like, I literally put these things in my calendar
Mhm.
because otherwise I know that my life goes on and there are people that I will lose touch with just because
Time goes by.
time goes by,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I think really honestly, like you're saying, is just when you get together at one point, you make plans then for the next time you're going to get together.
hmm
Or I know that one of my good friends travels a lot and she's busy in the summer, so I reach out. got in touch with her this week and said, hey, what's the end of August look like for you when we can get together again? So it's just more of that reaching out to people on a regular basis and trying not to let, even when a lot of time goes by and you think, ooh, does this feel kind of weird to reach out to this person? I haven't talked to them in several months. Just sending them a quick text and saying, hey, I've been thinking about you and I hope you're having a good summer. And, let's talk when you get a chance. Just those little things to just reach out to somebody to let them know that they're on your mind.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's amazing because I get all squirrely, but oh, I haven't talked to them in a long time and I'm kind of ashamed of it. And
Mhm.
yet, every time I've sort of taken the courage to go, okay, just suck it up and reach out anyway,
Yes.
they're so happy.
Yes. Yes. They're happy to hear from you. And they're just as embarrassed that they haven't reached out to you too. So yeah.
Yep, yep. Um, let's see, what else? What are the other things? What are kind of some things you've learned along the way, some tips or practices or something that you could share with our audience that might help someone going through something that takes a long time to go through. That's not, it doesn't have an easy, fast solution. Like you still have limitations on some of the things you could do. Um, Not like you did,
Mhm.
but the in as we go through any kind of transition like this, what I would call a grief event, um, we are changing all the time. And then you're sort of coming out and you're not that person.
Right. Yes, there are some things that I think, um, like now with my leg being shorter, I wear a lift in my shoe and I can never be without shoes on. Like maybe a couple steps, but I have to have shoes on all the time. So I have to have my inside shoes and my outside shoes. So when I go to somebody's house, many times I'll bring my shoes that I can wear in their house, and my grandkids know, oh, those are Nini's inside shoes. She's wearing those there last year. Those are your inside shoes. And so just little things like that, small things that have changed. I've recently gone through another grief experience. I just uh, found out about 10 days ago that the dental office where I've worked for 37 years, the doctor sold the practice, and his attorney was at the office in the morning to tell us that as of 5 o'clock that night, we were no longer employed.
Oh,
And so I have had a level of grief, a level of anger, a level of frustration. But I found that in this, it's only been not even 2 weeks yet. I'm okay with it a lot quicker than I think I would have been previously because I understand what I'm feeling and
hmm.
I know that and by all means, the doctor should have retired. He should have. I want him to have a happy and healthy life, whatever he still has going forward. I'm not quite ready to retire yet, so I'm hanging in there with the doctor that purchased the practice. So I still have a job, but it's in a totally different environment than what I'm used to, and I'm having to learn a lot of stuff, a different computer program, all these different things. I'm like, I'm 65 years old. I am too old to be teaching this dog new tricks. But on the other hand, I'm like, you know what? I'm the dog that's going to learn new tricks. So I think I've gotten past that grief portion of this, and it's not dragging me down the way it might have had I not experienced some of these other losses in the past.
Mm. Yeah, but we're not taught these things.
Sort of like yeah, I was going to say it's sort of like a new perspective on life, a
Yeah.
new it is like you become a different person when you go through grief every time. You're just slightly different, and it's so cool to hear you say this, to see that you everything you learned from that experience with your leg has translated into this, and it's helped you walk through this with a little more grace, a little
Yeah.
more understanding. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, the other thing that I love about you saying that is that you aren't doubting yourself. You aren't questioning, is it you? Is it you're not doubting your own value, your own worth, your own because through all this, you know who you are.
Mhm.
You know you've been through way harder stuff than this.
Right, right. That is very true. And I just don't, I know I have seen how God has worked in my life to walk me through what I've been through. And it's just so close to my heart that he is going to be there no matter what the challenges are that we face going forward. And
Hmm.
as we know, we're all going to have these challenges, these losses. There's so many different types. And I'm getting older and my husband's getting older and we're all going to face these things. But I have such a strong faith that has grown stronger during this time frame that I know that will help me walk through whatever the journey has ahead for me too.
Yep, yep. So in the course of all of this, um, did your faith get stronger? Uh did you lean into it? Were you angry? What happened with that? Because I got angry and I left.
Okay.
I went to church. I still go to church from time to time, but not as I used to.
Mhm.
And so my reaction was very different. Not that I don't still pray and not that I don't still, but in terms of leaning into faith in the way that I did before my husband died, I don't.
Mhm.
But you had a different interaction and
Yeah.
experience.
And honestly, I don't go to church, quite honestly, but I have spent more time leaning on and talking with God than I ever have in my life in the last
Mm,
5 years. And whether I do that from church or whether I do that from home, to me, I still have a great relationship with God and a growing relationship with God. So
hmm.
that's where I feel like I leaned into it more, just because that was just what felt right and good to me. And I know not everybody would agree with that, but that's how my journey has been.
Yeah, I think people take what they need and they lean on what they need, and there's no right answer to any of this. You
Exactly.
know, um, when I I stopped going to church when someone petted me like I was a chia pet and said, "Oh, tell me about his loss." And he had died in my arms the day before.
Oh
And
my.
I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm done. Um, and so and yet there are other things that I've leaned into more, leaned more into nature, leaned more into movement, leaned more into, you know, being still, taking time, not rushing so much.
Mhm.
Um, so there's a way in which I think we to survive any of these things, we need to be connected to something, to God, to a higher power, to people, to and to land in ourselves in some way to survive this kind of thing.
Right. Right. I totally agree with that. And, the people that you surround yourself with are a big part of that. Um, and whether it leads you down a different path or a different direction, sometimes that happens. And you learn more about yourself and what's your strength, how strong you can be. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
I had a situation or a loss event. Gosh, it's been 24 years ago where we lost a baby.
Mm.
Um, I was I was about halfway through the pregnancy when I lost him, and I got really, really, really angry at God and felt like for I don't know, a couple years, like I was just hiding behind a rock and like peeking out, looking at him, like, are you going to hit me again? Like I felt like he just pulled the rug out from under me. And it was really hard. It was hard to go through this horrible loss and also feel like that one person that was supposed to protect you and be with you all the time allowed this to happen. That was really hard. And it was a long road back to feeling safe with God again. But it was a road that was worth traveling for me.
Hmm.
I'm not in the same place I was back then anymore because I have continued to grow and things have changed in my relationship with God. But it was it was a very difficult time to have both of those things happen at the same time. But I think it's very important that people understand that, again, there's no right or wrong way. It's just the way that you go through it. And I think it's very true that you need to have some kind of connection, whether it is with, like you said, Allison, nature and movement, Connie with God, or just people in general, that you have those core people with you. There's That's important, but there's not one right way.
Mhm.
Hmm. And I think that the one of the things that really falls apart during a grief event when something happens is trust, trust in ourselves, trust in other people, sometimes trust in God, trust in our futures. Um, and so stepping back into that trust and kind of risking your heart that way, it's it's a journey
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
and worth it. You know, um, I had a a real break with one of my family members. Um, in that I still don't fully trust this family member with me. And they're important to me. And so I'm walking myself back through cautiously.
Mhm.
And it comes down to, I think, well, what is the commitment? Do you want the relationship or not? Do you want the relationship with the person? Do you want the relationship with God? Do you want the relationship with your body, your community, your whatever? Um, would either of you agree or disagree? What would you think or say about that? The trust piece.
That's funny because I was actually going to talk about trust a little bit, because I also have um, been through, one of the big parts of my grief. The reason I became a grief recovery method specialist was because I went through an estrangement loss with one of my children, and I was a mess. I was just an absolute mess, and the grief recovery method, I truly believe, saved me. Um, and that's why I became a grief recovery method specialist. And it helped me so much. But the one thing that I still struggle with is trust. I am afraid to trust that people I love are not going to leave me, whether that's through just leaving the relationship or whether it's through death. Um, I really struggle with that. And I don't think that's uncommon. I think that's a common thing for people to struggle with. Trust and the fear of losing somebody else yet again, is a really tough thing. One of the things that's helped me with that is therapy. I am in therapy to try to figure out how to navigate relationships so that I am in control of how I handle this and I don't put it back on the other person to make me feel like they're not going to leave. That's not their job. It's my job. So that has helped me. It is helping me tremendously. Um, Also, for me, meditation is hugely helpful and beneficial. And then talking to the trusted people I trust, my sister, she's my go-to, she's my safe place. So those things have helped me. I don't know if I might have just gone off on a tangent. I don't know if I answered your question, but it was one of the things I actually wanted to talk about tonight. So I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's a very common thing that happens to people, that loss of trust.
No, that's perfect because one of the things I hear most often from grieving clients is being abandoned by people they thought would stay.
Mhm.
It's very, very common. It's one of the top things that people say. That and
Yeah,
I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know who I am in this situation. But those two are the top things that I'm sure that you hear as well, Christy, when you're working with people
yeah,
who are grieving.
yeah, yes,
Connie, what did you
I
think?
think for me, I think the biggest thing with trust was more trusting my body physically, the fear of going somewhere alone, until I could just take that in baby steps, maybe go to the grocery store and, little things like that, that I had to learn to trust my body again, that it would carry me, that I wasn't, um, that I was getting stronger and being able to do more for myself. But it took a while to just gradually feel that I had that trust and confidence in myself to be able to do those things again.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it gets embedded the fear of trusting. I remember when my husband was ill, I wanted to participate in cabaret shows and I wanted to be in a show. And it was a bucket list thing. So when he was dying, I was like, okay, life is short. I'm going to do this thing. And then he died. And afterwards, I did another one. And I stood up there and when he died, I had brain fog, I had loss of energy, I couldn't focus, I couldn't remember. Everything fell apart. Like my body and my mind just failed me suddenly. I was able and then I was not. And I stood up on the stage and I forgot all the words of all the songs that I had memorized over months. It didn't happen while my husband was dying. I remembered them for those shows. But afterwards, that fear flooded my body and I lost all of it. There was literally a table in front of me singing the words up at me that I'd forgotten. It was somewhere I knew them, but I couldn't access it because I didn't trust that I wasn't back there again. And like that's what you're talking about, that fear that lives until you can prove that the step that you're taking has solid ground under it.
Right. Absolutely.
It was a horrifying experience.
I
yes.
can't.
Oh my gosh.
So embarrassing.
Oh.
Um, so is there something from this episode? We're going to close out. Um, something from this episode that you want to bring up or point up for our audience to really think about as we leave today.
In
I
my,
can, oh, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Con.
I was going to say in my situation, it was more just making sure you have all the information. If it's a medical situation, making sure you have all the medical information you can get and are confident in the people that are helping treat you and helping make those decisions, those physical decisions with you, and not settling, and that's hard in our medical society right now, to not just settle for what one person is going to say to you, or so that's key. And unfortunately, many times it's a financial thing that can't not be navigated the way you'd like it to be. But when you can, make sure that you get all the information that you think is going to benefit you and help you make the right decisions about your health. And then surrounding yourself with the people that are going to be there to support you, whether it's, just talking with you or whether it's physically being there for you, but having that connection so that you can focus your energy on what the issue is at hand and have those people around you giving you all the support that you need.
Perfect.
Yeah, love that. I was just going to say that I think that as far as one of the things you said that I loved was just those milestones along the way that you kind of like you didn't have a big party, although we could have. I would have done that. That would have been fun. Just those little milestones, just really noticing them and celebrating them. Because I think that as we get older, we realize that the beauty in life and the joy in life are in the tiny, small details, the everyday, mundane things. That's where true joy and happiness is. And celebrating the tiniest thing is important when you're grieving. So I love that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I love that too. I was really struck by our conversation just now about trust and about how trust is a choice. It's a choice to open your heart. It's a choice to take that step, which might be risky, but also might be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you've enjoyed our Find Your Way podcast with Connie Gold, thank you so much, Connie, for being here and sharing your journey. Thank you, Christy, for your contribution as well. And, watch, subscribe, share, come back. This is a monthly podcast, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Allison. Thank you, Christy.
Yes, thank you, Alison. Thanks, Con. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.